Hey everybody, it's Eric with District 82 Pinball. I wanted to do this video as like my post tournament repair and some calls I had to make as a tournament director to tell you, or basically to just help anybody who's looking to run some tournaments and also maybe give some clarification to some of the players that were playing what happened to the game that they were playing on, and maybe a decision I had to make here or there. But I got a dozen or so I'm going to go over, and maybe it'll help you on anything that you have in the future. So if you're looking for gameplay tips, this is not the video. Okay, this is just how to fix some stuff that breaks, and if you're going to run a tournament, what do you got to do in some situations. So here we go. So the first game I had I don't have them in order on how they happened over the weekend, but you know, we had over 100 players, 3 tournaments, a ton of games were played. It just, all kinds of stuff was played this weekend. And then I got my list of stuff I'm going to go over and tell you. So first one, Twilight Zone. This I was told about this after the fact, not during the tournament. So I just had to fix it after the fact. So what the issue was the Powerball did not register when it went into the shooter lane. So the Powerball is the ceramic ball. Let me show you this here. It's this one on Twilight Zone. Okay, typically it starts out in the gumball machine, but it can be in the gumball machine, it can be in the ball trough, or it can also be in the lock. And if it's in the trough, there's actually a proximity sensor, also one in the gumball machine, to where if the ball gets put into play, it starts a mode to where if you put the Powerball back into the gumball machine, it starts a multi-ball. The issue is when the Powerball came out of the trough, it did not recognize that the Powerball came out of the trough. So what is that? Well, there's a proximity sensor in the trough, and I got the old one out here so you can see what it looks like. It's a little circuit board that's hooked up to this sensor, and this sensor rests right in the ball trough. And when a metallic ball is resting against it, it knows that it's a metallic ball and not a ceramic ball. Therefore, it's the regular ball. It's not going to give you the Powerball. But then when this Powerball is sitting against it, it knows it's in the trough because there's a separate switch that tells the game, hey, there's a ball in here. But then this metallic one's not being registered. Therefore, it's the Powerball. It kicks it into play. The game knows it's the Powerball. So these boards are, you know, they're 30 years old now. They're starting to get flaky. I've repaired this one a few times. There's actually a place in Australia that makes a replacement board. I bought it a couple years ago because I knew eventually I'd need it. And I finally just installed it after this tournament. But just to show you how it works, I'm in test mode right here. Okay, and when I put a ball in the ball trough, you can see that 2 switches came up here for the ball trough and also the trough proximity. And so if you're playing around with the ball in the trough, let me show you here. As I pop it in and out, you'll see both of them deactivate. There's one, and then they both deactivate, right? But if I put the ceramic one, if I put the ceramic one in there, it's only going to register that the trough one went and not the proximity because it's not metallic. Okay, so basically it happened after the fact. I did not have to make a tournament director decision on that one, but now it's fixed. It shouldn't be an issue in the future. Okay, F14 Tomcat. This is also kind of something that happened during practice, not during gameplay, so I didn't have to make a tournament director decision on it. This plastic broke right here. Okay, you can see it's really thin. In the factory, these were supposed to have a flasher socket in here. That's why there's a big hole in this plastic right here. In production, they did not put them in there. But this plastic broke, and it spun like this into the spinner, and it hung the spinner up and caught the ball. So the ball could not release through because the spinner wouldn't turn, and the plastic was stuck. So I noticed what the issue was, so I I just fixed it. Basically, this screw got loose. It broke. The screw got loose so the plastic could spin. So I tightened this down a lot. I just quickly grabbed some Mylar, taped it over this, and now this thing does not move. It's not going to freely turn into this. This happened during a warm-up session, so I did not have to make a director decision on it. But had it happened during a game and I recognized it, what I would have done is I would have taken the ball from this. I would have put it on the player's right flipper because it's on the right side of the play field. I would have then grabbed a screwdriver and just tightened this down after I straightened the plastic out, and they would have easily been able to finish the game without any issues. But I didn't have to make the call on that during gameplay. Okay. Vector. Vector, it's hard to see on the camera because I got purple lights in here, which I know people don't like. So I came up to this situation where the person was supposed to be in multi-ball, and there's 3 lock holes on Vector right here, okay? And when you get a multi-ball, it's supposed to kick out this one, kick this one to that hole, kick that one to this hole, then it should kick this one into play, then this one into this hole, and then this into play. Now, it kicked one ball out, but then the second one got stuck in here, and this one's right behind it. I have not been able to recreate this situation, but this is the second time I've seen this happen. I do not know what's causing it. And I have not seen it happen on the stream. The only thing I can think of is either I've got like an issue on the board where the signal's not getting passed along, or when this ball gets kicked out, somehow it's blowing by this hole and resting here, and therefore never activating that one into there. But needless to say, what I did this time is I repinned this connector. I checked this board, everything looks fine. I just repinned this connector. This is the solenoid data coming from the CPU, goes into here and comes back out to tell this kicker to kick. And you know, the early Bally's and Stearns and stuff, they don't really have a ball search. So if a ball gets stuck in the wrong place and the game's not expecting it during gameplay, a lot of times it will not fire that coil to kick it back into play. As a tournament director in this situation, what I did is I pulled the glass off. I had the player had actually captured one of his balls in the left flipper, and then the other 2 were stuck in there. I had him raise his right flipper. I took both balls out, stuck them on the right flipper, put the glass back on, and continued play. And I didn't have any more issues for the rest of it. I did actually have another issue later on where the ball was in this saucer, and it didn't recognize that it was in the saucer, and it wouldn't kick it back into play. So that's also leading me to believe that I have a data issue where it's not going through. So I repinned that. If that doesn't fix it, I'm actually going to replace that board with a different board and see if that fixes it, if the issue ever comes up again. But it's only come up, it came up once in the last tournament 2 months ago, the last big tournament, and it's always been like deep into the tournament, so that's why I think I got a connection issue. I did obviously check the switches. Switches worked fine and register fine, so there's no issues there. But that's just, when it's intermittent like that and I can't recreate the problem, all I can do is like fix one thing at a time and see if the problem's been resolved and move on. Okay, the next one was Wildfire. This actually happened after the tournament as well. This is actually really easy because I typically fix this on all my games before I bring it in here. This post was so loose it was like falling off. Okay. So basically the wood screws were all stripped out. When I was at home, when I originally shopped this game, I shopped it like many years ago. I actually just did the toothpick thing where you jam a bunch of toothpicks in there, glue it, and you put the wood screw back in it. It held for, a few years, no issues, but then it let loose again. So all I did was I took it off. I just drilled the holes all the way through. There's actually a lamp socket in there. You can see that lamp socket right there. So I actually had to twist the lamp socket 90 because I drilled the holes all the way through. And then I just used a T-nut and a machine screw instead of a wood screw and essentially, pressed it into the play field. So now whenever you're doing post transfers, because this one gets a lot of post transfers from here to here, because you want to hit this shot. You don't. The left flipper is kind of like, what do you hit with the left flipper? You want to use the right flipper to hit it up there, and that's why I'm assuming everyone's doing post transfers, and it caused that one to get all wore out. So that's been fixed. Okay, Volley. Volley had a legitimate issue. The issue is this. The ball in play was not showing, that it was a ball in play. The game actually played fine. It actually advanced through all the balls. Everybody could complete their game, but you just couldn't see which ball you were on. The problem ended up being that the advanced unit right here was off. Was just off by a little bit. Okay, so that right there would move it to ball 2. That right there moves it to ball 3, and that actually tells the game which light bulb to light up. Okay, all I had to do was loosen the screws, give it a little twist, and then it's back in business on the right ball advance. So not a big deal, and everybody still completed their game, and I didn't have to make a ruling or nothing. It's a one-player game, so when you're a one-player game, you can keep track of which ball you're on, and everybody knew, or almost everybody knew that ahead of time. That, hey, it just didn't tell you which ball you were on. You just kept playing until it stopped kicking out balls. Okay, what else we got here? Whirlwind. Okay, yeah, Whirlwind, I didn't actually fix it yet, so you can actually see what the issue is. A player came up to me and said the upper right flipper's not working. This actually happened in between games as well. Yeah, during all of our tournaments, all the games are turned on the entire time. Everything's on free play, so you can practice whatever you want in between games, and literally half my issues arise during the practice sessions, and people come up and tell me what they are. So the issue here is the upper right flipper wasn't working, the lower ones were. I was pretty certain it was going to be a wire. I lifted the play field up, and right away I can see that a wire is broken off, and it's the wire that goes to the end of stroke switch right here. So basically it had no high power at all. So when you flip, nothing flips. So I just turned the game off and took it out of the tournament for the night, and I'll fix it now and put it back in for next time. So not a big deal. If it happened during gameplay, I would have eliminated the game. It didn't matter which ball they were on, anything like that. I can't really lift the play field and resolder a wire on during gameplay, and then put the play field back down again and let them continue on. I would have just drawn them a new game, okay, regardless of what position people were in and how many points they had. Okay, Indiana Jones. Okay, this issue did not actually happen during this tournament, but it has happened off and on over the last couple of months, and I finally fixed it, and I want to tell you what it was because I'm sure it's going to happen to somebody else. Okay, Indiana Jones, like all the super pins from the early 90s from Williams, has got a lot of optos in it, okay? And optos like to have issues, especially now that they're 30 years old. So the issue was when you're playing the game, all of a sudden a ball would launch into play, and then you got two balls in the play field just randomly. And it's like, why is there two balls in the play field? The game's not in multi-ball or anything like that. And then if you drained one of those balls, it would end your ball, okay, even though the other ball is still playing on the play field. And it's like, why is that happening? Well, it turned out after this has happened a few times, I realized, what other progression of things can happen in this game that would cause that. And the way this game works is to lock a ball, you have to hit the drops down, right, and then hit it behind these targets. It goes into a subway under the play field, goes to a vertical up kicker into the idle, comes up into the idle, and then locks into the idle. Now, there's nothing in the game to tell it where it is inside of this idle here. It just sits inside this little cylinder. But there is an optic right here that tells the game it went from under the play field into the idle, okay? And once that happens, the game thinks that, hey, there's a ball inside of the lock, all right? Now, what was happening is, I'll show you. I found this issue. The connector going up into that optic had a bad crimp on it. I've been finding these more often now on these small connectors, these .062 Molex pin connectors, where I put it in test mode and I wiggled this, and all of a sudden it was going click, 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 click. And so during gameplay, I also just played a game with the glass off, and if you just have the ball in your hand and you put your finger in here to block this opto, the game will actually kick a ball back into play, and it recreated the issue. Okay, so I finally figured out that issue, because I thought at first it was a ball trough issue and these other things, but it wasn't any of that. And but take a look at those connectors on your games if you ever have that sort of an issue. Okay, next one, Jungle Lord. Okay, player came up to me, or actually this happened during gameplay. The ball was just sitting on the 5 light and it was stuck there. So it was stuck, you know, right here like this, and they're flipping and the ball's just stuck. So I ended up taking the glass off. I pulled the ball down to here, put it on their flipper, and let them continue play. So what it was is this insert is sunk a little bit. Okay, these early Williams inserts, and also the early Bally inserts, they don't have any kind of ribbing in the insert, so that they get dished, okay, and they also sink a little bit from regular incandescent lights getting hot. All right, now all I did is I just took the lamp socket off and just kind of pushed this insert up from the bottom, and now it's flush with the play field again, so it doesn't really get stuck there anymore. There's many ways to re-level it, from doing that to taking some Mylar, cutting a circle out, sticking it on there, or else doing some nail polish dropper, you know, just some clear coat just to fill in the gap. But those things happen. That was no big deal. Whitewater. Nobody told me this during the tournament, but multiple people told me after the tournament was over. Apparently, they could really rock this game, and it wasn't giving any tilt warnings at all. So I opened up the plumb bob, and the plumb bob had actually fallen off and was laying in the bottom of the cabinet. Okay, you know, if you see that happen in a tournament where you can really just rock the machine, just tell the tournament director, and they can come address it for the next game. Like if this happened, all of our games are head-to-head, right? I would have allowed that game to continue. Everyone probably just would have been a lot rougher with the game. But after that game, I would have put the plumb bob back on. I can't put a plumb bob back on in the middle of a game. So I rely on a lot of you guys to tell me what's wrong with the game so I can actually go ahead and address it for the next time. Okay. Oh, Jungle Lord also had another issue where someone was playing it during practice, and you know, they started multi-ball where the bell goes off and it's super loud, and then it just never started multi-ball. I honestly, that's the first time I've seen that happen on this game. I don't know what happened, and I power cycled the game, and it never happened again the entire tournament. So I'm just going to call that a one-time fluke. If it happens again, then I'll have to address it more. But we continued playing the game the rest of the tournament for another day and a half, and it didn't happen again. Okay, so let's go down. Everything else is working fine down here. Jurassic Park had a left flipper issue where it was just kind of acting weird when you'd hit the flipper. When I went to look at it later, this happened during warm-ups again, or during a practice session, so I just turned the game off, took it out of the tournament. No big deal. But if a flipper issue happened during a tournament, I would have yanked it out immediately. Just yank it out, get a new game. A lot of times, especially on these Data East ones, they're very sensitive on the flipper button, and they got a little flipper board in the cabinet, on the bottom of the cabinet along the left side wall, to where if you think about a switch, you know, if this is one switch blade and the cabinet's the other, when you push the flipper button in, they kind of rub against each other, right? And they make this wiping motion at the same time. Well, if the contact's a little dirty or pitted or something, it can actually like double hit. It can like hit and then hit a dead spot and then hit it again as you do one push of the flipper button. So you get kind of like a little flutter when the flipper goes off. So I've had this happen before in other games. It was real simple. I just actually cleaned the cabinet switch, and it didn't happen anymore. I just had to wait till the tournament was over. I just addressed it later because I didn't know what the issue was immediately, and I didn't have time to fix it during the tournament. Okay. The next issue, Monopoly. Right when they started the Monopoly game, the player was actually just flipping the flipper buttons, and it was scoring points. Okay. So basically just a vibration was causing it to score points. This happened right before they were going to start the game. I didn't have time to address it, so I just drew them a new game before they started. What it ended up being is these two cop targets right here. They're very close together. Okay, they're extremely close together, these stand-ups. They're actually individual targets. They're screwed into wood, and they get beat pretty badly. They get hit from this flipper, like dead shot straight on. They also get hit from the down flippers. If you can see, there is a direct path that it can sideways hit right here. Bam. And then they can also get ricocheted upon and then come back from the top and hit, like this flipper will hit this post and ricochet it right into the side of this target. So this target was actually pushed over onto this other one. And so it was like this and kind of stuck behind it. So whenever you flip the flippers, the switches were so sensitive, that whenever you flipped, it would just kind of like touch, and it was scoring points. So I've taken it out, I've re-separated them, I've tightened them back down again, both into the wood and the switch stack itself, tightening the switch stack so it's nice and tight. So it's going to take a while to beat this target back into it again. I mean, it's going to happen eventually again, but that's what the fix was. For that one, I did that after the tournament, not during the tournament. Okay, and like I said, I just drew him a new game. All right, what else we got here? BMX. Okay, this was actually a tournament director decision. Nothing wrong with the game. I think we're in the middle of a tournament. Okay, and all the players were at the game. We got to realize we had 22 groups of 4 players playing in this tournament, okay, and this is just one of the groups. Everybody else has started and they're playing, and this group was still waiting for player 3 to show up. They came to get me as a tournament director. They're like, hey, one of our players isn't here. I tried locating that player. I couldn't find the player. I went around the entire place, couldn't find him. And then I said, okay, well, I can't find him. I've given enough time. The rest of the round is roughly about half over compared to what everybody else was doing, time-wise. So I set my timer for 2 minutes. I set it on the glass. I continued to look for the player. I still couldn't locate the player after the 2 minutes expired. I said, okay, I'm just going to launch his ball, which I did. And then we continued on to player 4. Now, the player was eventually located, came back to the game, and finished out playing balls 2 and ball 3. But, as a tournament director, I had to keep the tournament moving. I couldn't just wait for somebody who didn't notify me that they were taking a break or anything like that. And they continued on, no big deal. It's just that those kind of things happen if a player doesn't show up to a game. You got to make that call. And I did. I think the player actually ended up winning the game anyway with the 2 balls instead of 3 balls. But you got to make that decision and just move on and let everyone know that those are the kind of things, that could happen if you don't show up to a game. Okay. Last action, hero. This was someone playing during warm-ups. They ended up having a multi-ball. Balls were going everywhere. And then all of a sudden, he said, his ball went into the scoop. And then all of a sudden, things kind of got weird and stuff stopped working as far as coils went. And it was missing a ball. Okay. Well, what it ended up being is they blew a fuse. He blew a fuse for the high voltage coils, and they stopped working. And I at the time I just turned the game off. But then I think that was after the first tournament, I came back and looked at it, and believe it or not, it was literally just a fuse. There was no transistors blown. All the coils were in spec. Nothing wrong. I put a new fuse in it, and it lasted the rest of the weekend, I will tell you it's very rare that I blow a fuse and all you do is replace the fuse and everything works. But that happened to be the case on that one, and the game is still working fine. So I guess sometimes it happens. It is just a fuse. Okay. Harlem Globetrotters. This was an issue. A player came up to me during practice and said that this wire form was raised all the way up, and when they were playing, their ball came down and actually went under the wire form and into the trough. So I came over, and during the tournament I noticed it was way up, so I just pushed it all the way down nice and tight. Now that got me through the weekend, okay? But what I did today is I came back, I pulled this thing all the way out, I put some drops of Gorilla Glue in there, and then I smashed it back down again, and now it's nice and tight. It doesn't come up anymore. Yeah, that must have been something I missed when I was shopping it out. But that should be fixed. No more issues on that. Had that happen during a game where literally a player's playing the ball, it comes down and it goes out underneath this wire form, I would have actually given that player a compensation ball at the end after I pushed it back down so they could continue the game. Okay. And what else? Okay, Funhouse. This one had a real legit issue. The trap door came up, and it got hung up on this light fixture right here because it was actually in a slightly different position, and it wouldn't come back down again. And then when I tried to manually do it during gameplay, I couldn't manually push it down. Okay, I didn't know what the issue was, and I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't go down. You guys are in the middle of a ball one. I ended up just redrawing them a new game. Well, there's something with that. If it actually, there's definitely some wear. I mean, it's an older game here. I did it in test mode, and after about like 8-9 times it flipped up, it just got stuck, and it actually got hung up to where the game will try to pull it down only like 3 or 4 times, and then it gives up on trying to pull it down on the release mech. So essentially, during the tournament, I gave them a new game. But to fix this thing, I came back, I looked at it. You literally got to take that entire mech apart to address it, and it's a giant pain in the butt. But I'll tell you, I did kind of do just a quick hack, and that's just all I did was I turned this light so that way this can't go up all the way. If it goes way too far anymore, I bent the light down to where the flap will actually hit it. It won't get stuck, but it won't allow it to go up too high to actually get stuck anymore. So I'll address that one later when I actually take the entire thing apart, because underneath it's just a nightmare. But the quick fix was just to prevent it from actually going too far. That was the issue. It went too far. It's not supposed to go that far the way it's originally designed. Okay, well, that's it. That's enough. Those were the issues that I had. I know that there were some other tournament director decisions that had to be made, but those things happen. You get stuck balls all the time. Actually, amazingly, I did not have a single player play out of order, which was fantastic, especially for how many games that were played during this tournament. Everyone had a good time, and it was a very successful tournament. So if you want to come play a tournament in the future, I got 2 in August. They're going to be for IFPA points again. And I got one giant one coming up in October, or I should say 6 that are all in a row. But this is Eric with District 82 Pinball, and hope to see you guys in the future.